What happened for you when you stopped drinking alcohol?
Wow. Okay.
Told you.
Lots changed quickly, but I didn't notice any change for a while, if that makes sense. So this is going back to May 2022. We're going to, I guess, how and why that happened and what prompted it. The change initially was I've done periods of like cutting out alcohol for a month or a few months and felt better, and then started drinking again. I think it's only really the last few months or year or so where I'm starting to notice the impact and the change off the back of not drinking through greater consistency, being more consistent, being able to get into a rhythm and build momentum. So that was the big changes in you. The changes you make on a certain date don't necessarily show up until 6 months in the future or a year in the future or 2 years in the future.
What prompted you to start or to make that final decision? I'm just going to stop, instead of this kind of yo-yoing a lot of people go through, right?
I think now I look back, ultimately, I couldn't do what I want to do had I kept drinking. I couldn't achieve the things I want to achieve had I kept drinking.
How did you know?
I think just through inconsistency. You'd have like a few weeks or a few months of like working really well and going to the gym and running and eating healthy, and then one big blowout and it's all undone. And then you're kind of back to square one and you get into like unhealthy habits. So it was the only thing I could do to start creating healthier, not necessarily healthier habits, but just better habits that would maintain over the course of time.
What were some of those habits? What did you replace with the alcohol?
Running, exercising, sleeping, spending time with my wife, being happier, being more present. There is a stat, I'm stealing this from someone else. The average Brit spends about 252 hours per year hungover. So like a shadow of their normal self.
So not even drinking, just hungover.
Yeah. So 250 hours that over 10 days. And that's the average Brit. So I was more than that. So I got back. So at the very least, if I didn't do anything differently or replace that time with other stuff, I would have 10 days where I just feel better. And over the course of a year, as you get older, that was really noticeable.
Okay. So describe to me what your average week or life was like and what some of those ambitions were beforehand. And then what changed afterwards. As a result, I know you feel so much more energetic and, you know, business is going pretty well for you and things like that. But it's one of those things where you don't know the difference until you've lived it for a while. And then even then, you don't technically know the difference. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the show, or back to the show for those of you who aren't new here. Getting lots of new faces these days, and so I just wanted to take a quick sec to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Seven, and also to give you a quick announcement. As a little bit of background, this show used to be very focused on what it meant to be a leader, but I quickly realized I already had my answer, which is that I believe you already are one. And it's just about becoming more of that person you want to be. So we're talking about the world, self-leadership, personal development, humanity, discovery, self-discovery, and so much more. This is a place where deep conversations happen in a way that helps you become more of that person you want to be. And so if you appreciate that and you want to help us grow, but I know you're tired of people hearing, we've been hearing this for over a decade, like and subscribe and share the episode, and I get it, but look, it is genuinely the biggest and best thing you can do. I don't play ads or any crap like that. I do this and take this time to say thank you because I appreciate you and where this show is going. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Lots of love, and let's get on with the episode.
There were just no excuses anymore. So it coincided with stupidly saying, yes, I'd run the London Marathon in October 2022. Had I not stopped drinking, I probably would have done it, but it would have been 100 times harder and I wouldn't have trained to the level that I trained at. And that also not have a negative effect on other parts of my life. So it was just every weekend I could get up and go and run my first 3-mile run on a Saturday morning. And then that got longer and longer. And all of a sudden, what was really nice is starting to run basically as a beginner, as a novice, and being incredibly unfit at that moment. The noticeable difference being going from running for like 30 minutes turned into being able to go and run for 3 hours, like nonstop, over not, I don't know, 4 to 6 month period. And that was a real tangible, noticeable benefit. Like, was I happier? Yeah, but it's also, that's quite hard to quantify. Like, I've got my Whoop, my watch, that doesn't tell me like how happy I am or how not happy I am. So that was that was nice to track, because you could there genuinely see progress. I had more energy, I slept, and there's all these things, but so many of them are not tangible. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but
What were some of those ambitions that you had that you weren't realizing?
wanting to grow business in the US was a big one, and still is a big one. And it was also just be a better version of myself, be more consistent and fitter, healthier, stronger, more successful. But I think the underlying theme here is also be able to like show up at home in personal life and be present, happy, consistent mood.
In what ways were you not doing that before?
I would be giving, like, in bursts, 100% my attention, energy to socializing, to work, to either one of those two things. So then when I was at home, I was exhausted, tired, grouchy, grumpy, miserable, all of those things. So it was trying to have everything in unison was, I'm not even gonna say hard, like it was impossible. And trying to do all those things at the same time is hard. It's still hard now. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's 100% easier.
And is it the clarity of mind? What's the specific impact you think that has? Because so I have this concept I call the timeline B fallacy, where right now we're living in timeline A. Timeline B is the what if. So let's say you from 3 or 4 years ago goes, what if I stop drinking? The what if doesn't exist. The what if is timeline B. You can't know until you do the thing. And then you went down timeline B where you stopped drinking. But now you can't know if you'd still be actually just as happy drinking or not. You can't hop back and forth between timelines and test it out. So I think a lot of people, this is why this kind of yo-yoing you described happens, is you go, well, I'm feeling pretty good, and maybe it's for lots of other reasons. Maybe it's because business is going better, or because I'm just in a better mood, and it's not because of this bad habit of mine or whatever. And so you keep trying to maintain both infinitely, because we live so short term unless we really consciously think long term.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to understand, I suppose, is once you made that difference, once you hopped into what would have been timeline B, which is now your timeline A, your only one life, what were the tangible differences between the two, so that folks at home can understand this is what my potential is and how it feels. Often we have to reverse engineer how things feel. So, okay, I know I'm hungover, but like, who cares? Tomorrow it'll be gone. You know? Well, actually, here's what it really looked like.
It's debatable whether I'd still be happily married. I would be a lot fatter than what I am now, a lot more unhealthy. I would have less energy. Market and the industry we're in has definitely been challenging. Would we have survived that storm through that kind of post-COVID, post-venture investment boom? I don't know, but I would say possibly not, because I wouldn't have the energy, enthusiasm, discipline to get through what has been a challenging couple of years. And I definitely wouldn't be this happy. That's the overarching, like, big intangible benefit here. Does it make sense?
It does. I find it really fascinating that people can cut out a bad habit and you only realize in hindsight just how many little things that this was contributing to. And when you add that to the rest of life, right? Because look, your life is still going to be stressful in other ways. You're still building a pretty good business, a pretty big business. You're growing, you're managing growth. You have all these employees and team members. You're flying across the world to do business and really good revenue. All of that is going to have its challenges, and it's less, stressfulness and all these things. And you're ambitious, so you want those things.
Yeah.
Do you want more on top? And at what point does the straw that breaks the camel's back breaks the camel's back? The answer is probably no. But we can give in to the short-term things that make it seem like we're making our life easier and really make our lives harder.
All of those things we're doing, and there's loads more I want to do and want to achieve for reasons that now I think are healthy than what were before unhealthy. Would any of those things be achievable had I kept drinking? Like, no.
And why exactly? Just like, I understand it cut out your happiness, but like, is it the lethargy? Was it, because we know, there's a lot of research, so much research now about just how much alcohol hurts the brain and that it's a toxin, it's a neurotoxin. And, what were the really tangible effects? You would show up one day and be like, nope, I'm just not here today. Like, what would happen?
You just find yourself making excuses. Like, you can't do calls at late hours in the evening if you're in the UK. Traveling to the US a lot is tiring and takes its toll anyway. Every time we have a first stage conversation with a client, we're going through a pitch process or a bid, like looking for marginal gains here, but every time I know I'm able to show up being the best or a better version of myself had I not made that change. So now I'm not saying every person gets 100% of my attention and energy, but they get the vast majority. Whereas before, were they getting that? Probably not. So I think that's the thing. And again, whether I'm getting another 1% out of my day or week or month, or whether it's 50%, I don't know. It's impossible to quantify. But what I am getting is whether it's 1% or 50%, that adds up over the course of a month, a quarter, 6 months, a year, so on and so forth. And I'm probably now at a point where things are starting to get pretty good and pretty exciting.
Nice.
But it's going to create like a hockey stick type curve. Where I am on that hockey stick, I don't know. Still very early days. But I think that's also why people give up on things really early. They try it for like a week or a month or maybe a few months and they don't see any benefit. And they're like, screw that. I'm going back to how I was before. And they give up. So I take a view, not just talking about drinking, but anything you do it for a long, consistent period of time and expect zero.
Yeah, that's really, so what I love about what you just said is we live in a world of quantifiable data, right? Data is the keyword of the internet era. And some data can't be quantified, it's only qualified. We only have qualitative experience that one has to trust subjectively, so has to trust if it's objective and only knows if it's subjective, if it's my experience. What you've just described is the big challenge with trusting that qualitative experiential data is, okay, that worked for you, but maybe I'm different and we all need to go through it ourselves. What would you say to someone who needs to stick it out through this kind of a process? Someone who knows they need to do a hard thing, change a habit. It could be drinking, it could be something totally different. And they're kind of finding it tough to build up the experience with that qualitative result in their life.
I think firstly, I would definitely encourage them to think about what is it they actually want. And is it just a thing they want to like build this company and sell it for 10 million or a bazillion, or they want to run a sub 3-hour marathon, or because people say, I want to do this, but actually when you boil it down, they don't want to do that at all. So it's understand what it is they exactly want to do. And are they fully committed to cutting things, making significant changes to do that? And if the answer is, I want to do this thing, and I am then fully committed, then I think the rest of it should take care of itself. But I think it's also just doing stuff without expectation. So when we're fundamentally like a sales-led business, so when people are going down I'm now on my own, I'm a standalone consultant, rep, whatever, I'm going to start winning my own book of business and building that. People do, for the most part, what we encourage them to do, what we tell them to do, what we coach them to do for, I don't know what the time frame is, say between 2 weeks and 6 weeks, and they get nothing back, and then they start to get disheartened. It's like, because it's supposed to be hard. Everything worth doing is supposed to be hard. So if you want to, whatever it is you want to do, if you're expecting results in the first, let's call it a few months, you are going to be incredibly disappointed, incredibly underwhelmed, and that's where just you will give up, where most people give up. So removing that expectation from the start, I think stacks the odds in your favor.
This journey and experience of yours seems to resonate with a lot of people. We've talked about times when you've been on stages, you've gone on to podcast shows, you write on LinkedIn about this exact experience, and it seems to resonate with a lot of people. Why do you think it resonates so much?
What do you mean?
Why do you think so many people will turn to you and say, damn, man, thank you for sharing that story about quitting drinking and why it had such a big impact on you? And people probably start sharing stories with you. I'm trying this has worked, this hasn't worked. Man, this is tough. I noticed these differences. How did you do it? Why do you think that's so common, so prevalent?
I think everyone is, for the most part, trying to do things, trying to achieve things, try and move in the right direction. And they try all the things that they think they should do, that they read online, or they working with a coach, or whatever it may be. But it just comes down to that short-term expectation of results and of wins. And anything that comes short-term in terms of a result or a win, you are either lucky or it's not real. It's synthetic. So I think it's just about the consistency and starting and not stopping. And you have to trust that things will improve, or you will get to where you want to get to along the way. Now, I'm probably not painting a particularly fun or enjoyable picture with that kind of like zero expectation result. But then along the way, how do you quantify that or qualify that for yourself? Like, what wins are you getting along the way? So you stop drinking and then you try and focus on other stuff. Like, if you maintain the same level of diet and the same level of movement and you cut alcohol, you will lose weight. So that's a noticeable benefit you will get every week or every month to start with. Whilst that may form, that change in habit maybe to impact another part of your life, you will get other wins along the way. So it's about stacking those up, recognizing them through whatever form someone wants to recognize them.
You say that it's not a very fun picture that you've just painted. I wonder if there's a way of making it more fun.
I'm not someone that necessarily needs to have like fun all the time.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that would work for me.
Okay.
The only thing that did, again, was that piece around when you make a big change, and it's to try and achieve something over 1 year, 2 year, 5 year horizon, whatever it is. What are the smaller but still noticeable benefits that an individual gets over, like, in the early stages, so you kind of get that like dopamine reward gratification that everyone seems to be looking for now. The other thing is, if you've got like a calendar on your desk or something you want to write down, you just keep talking about the quitting drinking thing. You quit drinking because you want to be happier and healthier, and you want to build a big company, or you want to get into great shape, or you want to do something. So you start day one and you do all the right things, and your consistent theme is you've cut alcohol. Like, note down, put a cross in your diary. Like, I've done that for 1 day and achieved nothing. I've done that for 2 days, I've achieved nothing. I've done that for 3 days and I've achieved nothing. Like, the more crosses you mark down, that's stacking up into what I'd call reps, that over time you get that big bang success that you're looking for or chasing in the future, but you just don't get it early on. It's probably not that fun for some people, but
I think sometimes the fun that we lose can be replaced by the fun that we can gain. We just don't know what fun we can gain. I think what you've described is, oh, it's fun to see progress. Oh, it's fun to be clear-headed. It's fun to get my reps in. It's fun to notice I'm losing weight. It's fun to be more present with my friends because we don't all need to have a drink, for example. But we don't go, okay, how can I engineer fun into my life? I know I have a lot of fun when I'm doing stuff like this, right? That's really tough if I'm not making income elsewhere. So I need to refocus my efforts to make sure I'm making enough income so that I can keep doing stuff like this until this makes me enough of an income, etc. There's one sacrifice, and I'm doing another thing that's maybe a bit less fun, so I can get more fun somewhere else. And sometimes you have to suck it up because you can't get fun in all the ways all the time. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any challenge in life.
People always talk about giving stuff up. So whether that's giving up sugar, eating better, giving up alcohol, you are, fundamentally giving that up. But it's always then to gain something else. So what is it that you get back, and how do you notice that? I find it really useful to write stuff down. Like, what have I done today? What have I done during this week? What have I done during this month? And that was really noticeable early on, the other stuff you can do with that time. So what time are you getting back? And that is, when I boil it down, the biggest, it wasn't the biggest change, that was the biggest benefit of cutting drinking. Like, I wouldn't lose X hours on a Thursday night or Friday night going out and then the rest of the Saturday. So that's a Saturday wasted and a Friday night. I could spend that Friday night at home with my wife and my dog. I could spend that out on the canal where we live running, spend it in the gym, I could spend it on the sofa watching TV, I could spend it working. Like, I get all that time back. And then the Saturday is like a free day. Like, is a bonus. And that day, if I want to go running, go to the gym, work, spend time with my wife, spend time with friends, play golf, all of those things, or I just want to sit in a dark room on my own, like, it's an actual bonus that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
So you're getting time for free, which is the most valuable thing we all have.
Yeah. What are you getting as opposed to what are you losing? Yeah. I get to do X as opposed to I have to do X.
Yeah, it's the thing, it's the reframing of it. And I think it's there's a huge kind of movement now, an underlying theme of people realizing just because this is the way people have done stuff forever doesn't mean I have to do it that way.
This entire time, you're building a business. It's a pretty successful business. You've got a team of about 15 people. You travel around the world. Sometimes you have these late nights and things, but you seem to be having some fun. You get to do cool things and meet cool people. What have been your biggest lessons in building something bigger than you and achieving or striving towards ambitious goals?
It's not as challenging as it used to be. Like, it's still not easy, but it's a lot easier than what it was because I live my life very differently. I can go very quickly, and very quickly, very fast, and very hard at things. If I think this is the right thing to do, I will drop everything and run at that full steam ahead. That is great when it's been previously just me or a very, very small team. When we got to about 40 people a few years ago, challenger market, I wasn't in a great place. All these other things kind of unraveled that. If I want to go quickly, I need to take people with me. I'm not saying I need to check in with them every hour or every half day, but explain what we're doing and explain reasons why. I do assume too often that people can read my mind and they know why I want to do something, why it makes sense from a market standpoint, from a strategy standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. Just taking a little bit of time, this could be like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour, to explain, here's where we are, here's what we want to do, here's the reasons why, and just articulating that to people. So it gives them the opportunity to keep up. Now, not everyone will be able to keep up. I think that's another thing. There's a point needing to and wanting to take people on the journey, but there's also a point when not everyone is able, capable, or wants to go on that journey. People quite like steady state. They don't want to grow. They don't want to build. They're just quite happy doing what they're doing. And whilst that may be fine, it may not be right for us right now. It may be right for us in the future. So the thing about taking people on the journey, I have to just be really mindful of how I do that and when I do that, because I find I get very excited, very eager, and that can be a big miss. So as an example, it could be we decide to run a dinner in New York or SF for founders who we typically support in the US. Series A, Series B, Series C, whatever stage of company. We agree that on a Monday, we agree that it's Tuesday today. We agree that today with everyone leaves the office, end of the day. I think I need to get a jump on this now. And I'll spend 4 or 5 hours going through my network, building landing page, booking venue, do it, and then start to confirm guests for that day in the future. People come back in the next day, and they're like, should we get started on this? I'm like, I've already done like 25% of it last night. So whilst that may be a good thing, because we've made progress in a very short space of time, the downside there is people don't feel they've played a part in that. They feel left out. They feel like they're playing second fiddle to me. And then when we've tried to grow, and we are again trying to grow again now, is having people, giving them the rope and the autonomy to do these things that fundamentally is their job. I think I'm helping them by taking something off their plate. How that feels to that individual ends up being, I'm doing their job for them because I don't trust them. And it's not that at all, but if that's the way it feels to them, then it's true.
Human beings choose what they wish to be true and label that as reality, and therefore it becomes your reality, whatever you believe. So if I believe I'm left out, I am left out.
Yeah.
To me in my own world. So you're managing other people's own worlds. I mean, what you're describing, not just that part in particular of managing other people's worlds and expectations, but everything to do with building anything bigger than yourself to any significant level, is it has to be right for you. Like anything in life. Why try in the first place? Why put yourself through those long nights, those I've lost my whole evening because I suddenly want to do a thing? Why put yourself through that pain? How do you know? Or presumably the answer is because this is for you. You're doing what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
But how does one know if that's right for them? Some people look at what you're doing and they go, it's really long. But they're also really ambitious. So you could go, well, if that's too hard for you, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
Easy answer. Well, but what if I'm really ambitious? Do I need to suck it up? Can I suck it up? Because you get to be around a lot of also really successful business people, Series A, B, C founders who have raised a bunch of money. They've got these bigger teams now. They've hired a bunch of them through you, whatever.
Yeah.
So for some reason, there's a pattern that they all fall into where you're doing this thing that seems really hard. I might want the results you have, but I'm not sure if it's right for me to go and start going down a really challenging path of entrepreneurship the way you have. How do I know if it's right for me?
I'm probably completely unqualified to answer that question because I've never seen it from the other side of the coin. I think you just kind of know. It should just feel right. I think if you start second guessing yourself, you're in trouble. And that doubt is not healthy. I think everyone should have some sort of like doubt or insecurity or second guess themselves to a degree, but not to a point that it becomes debilitating. I think there's also, this is an unpopular opinion, lots of people out there that claim they're really ambitious and claim they want to do this and they want to build this company or they want to enter this event or whatever it is. And then they realize it's really hard. Or worse still, they say that and then do nothing about it. And where there's a point where talk is just insanely cheap. Again, not to labor the alcohol point, but people going, I wish I could do that. Well, do it then. And they do it for a month and then it's like, oh, it was someone's wedding, so I thought I would. It's like, okay, great. So you've just started something and you've just quit. So it's if you want to do something and you want to go fast, and you want to go hard, and you want to do all these things that you talk about and you tell your friends about at the pub on a Friday night, just go and do it. And accept it's going to be hard. Expect you're going to get nothing back for a long period of time. Accept it's going to suck. But that is the rent that's due. People just want things very easy. They want things very quickly. And they're not willing to pay the price up front. Last thing I'll say on alcohol, because I'm mindful I'm going to get boring. It is the exact same thing as you want to have fun, right? You want to be fun and you want to be happy. You want to have a great time. You want to feel like the man or the girl or whatever. So you go out on Friday night and you get drunk and you feel $1 million. You feel like, I don't know, the person you look up to on Instagram or TikTok or whatever thing it is like that. And you feel like that in the moment for 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever. And the next day you feel like shit. In the exact same way, if you want to be successful, whatever that is to each individual person, but you're not willing to put the work in, you have to pay the price up front. It's the difference between that debit and credit. If you're going out and getting drunk or whatever, like you're doing that on credit, and the next day you pay the price. The same thing is if you want something that is genuinely worthwhile, genuinely rewarding, you have to pay the price for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. It could be, who knows how long. And it's going to suck. But at the end of it, it's not about going, I sold a company for 5 million or 50 million or 500 million or whatever it is. It's just, that is kind of, again, to the record, I've never done that. I'm certainly not yet. But that is the big anticlimax. It's the process along the way, all the trials and tribulations, the times when it sucked, the times when it's been terrible. We've had some periods of time a couple of years ago where made some bad decisions, made some bad calls, bad bets, bad hires, didn't take action quick enough. And we got into some challenging, very stressful, like financial situations where you're looking at how much cash you have and what you've got to pay coming down the line. And it's very intense, very stressful. You made the best bets you can at that point to get out of those situations, do what you can, work exceptionally hard, and you get through it. You then also look back at those times I know were terrible and I hated and was pretty miserable. And you go, that was quite fun. So it's all the stuff along the way. It's not necessarily the big thing you're trying to get to.
There's a lot of trust required in this process. Trusting the process. Trusting that your life is going to be better once you quit the bad habit. Trusting that the hard work, long nights, and low or no pay will pay off. A lot of trust. If one doesn't have that trust, and that could be self-trust, trust in the process, trust in other people, I don't think it's possible. How does one, in your experience, how did you build that trust to keep it going? Trusting yourself to keep not drinking, for example. Trusting yourself to keep at the business world.
Yeah. For the most part, I've never done anything or done very little things that I haven't wanted to do. So everything I've done is out of choice. Like I'll go home, and I did this not that long ago, be whinging to my wife, things are terrible, God, it's so hard, it's so stressful, I'm so tired. And then she goes, you chose to do this. And I go, oh yeah. And it just reframes the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think you have to accept it's a choice. When it does get harder, don't make excuses. Stop. Everyone's allowed to have their little moment of dwelling, but if they become too often too consistent, maybe it's not for you. Maybe go and do something else. The trust in yourself piece, I think that again, that comes through, for me anyway, stopping drinking and forming way healthier habits along the way. Now knowing that I am the healthiest and the fittest I've ever been. I'm in probably the best shape I've ever been, mentally and physically. So along the way I frame it is there's people who have done way bigger things than I want to do or that I would like to do, and they're not in the same state that I am. So if they can do it, I can. I can take a little bit of solace and a bit of power in that. And then the flip side is I've made all these healthy changes. I'm living my life and doing what I think is the right thing to do 6, 7 days a week. Therefore, if that isn't enough to get me to where I want to get to, maybe it's not for me. Now, seldom, if ever, do I think that is the case. But at least then, if it doesn't work out, I know I've done everything I can. So there's still a win.
We now have a pretty good picture of the way you think. I love then zooming out and understanding someone's context, how you got to become the person you are now. So my question for you now is, what was life like growing up? What was the childhood like? What do you think made you the man you are today?
Big question. I've been through a lot of this stuff. Conversations like this, conversations I've paid for.
You're welcome. No, I'm kidding.
Read into that what you will. So growing up, most of my family always worked for themselves in some way, shape, or form. Self-employed, run companies to varying degrees of success, and there's been some really challenging times along the way. So I think growing up, there was definitely a phrase I've seen someone talk about recently, like no one's coming to save you. Like I grew up, like my dad was someone who worked for himself like my whole childhood pretty much. So when things are bad, and things are bad like most of the time, in some way, shape, or form, because there's always reasons to be stressed or upset or anxious or whatever. Growing up in that environment where it's not someone going to work a 9 to 5 and be at home at 5:15 or 5:30 every day of the week, like that just didn't happen. So that's all I saw growing up, is people working, again, to varying degrees of success or varying degrees of results depending on external factors. So I was used to seeing people work incredibly hard from a very young age. Like where my family home outside in the garden, there was like an outbuilding, 2 outbuildings, a shed basically, but converted into an office. I remember getting up, I would have been maybe 11 or 12, getting up very early. I've always loved mornings, to go and do one of my many paper rounds I had. And the office light would be on. My dad would be in the office working like way before 6 a.m. And that was like completely normal. Now, when I get up, and if I'm in this building or up early, sending emails or doing stuff at that time of day, like, people think I'm mental. But that's just what I know, and that's just one of the only weapons or secrets that I have. So, yeah, that was a big part of it. I played a lot of sport competitively, so that's probably where that competitive edge comes from. And there were also some challenging times when I would have been, I don't know, a teenager. My dad's company was self-employed, building a number of houses for a client, and this was 2007, 2008, subprime crisis, and completed, and then the company liquidated, owing my dad's company hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Meant all this money's been paid out to contractors and materials and employees and what you're expecting to come in, which covers your cost and there's a margin in it, was gone. So that went from having a very nice, very fun, very happy childhood to everything being taken away, but feeling like everything's been taken away very, very quickly. That probably plays out now into some unhealthy habits or unhealthy ways of thinking, where no matter how good things are and we hit a revenue number for a month or a quarter or a year and we're X amount of profitability and we're growing, it's just like, I go to bed and think the next day it's going to be gone. It could be gone at any moment, which is probably untrue and maybe a little bit irrational. Caveat that with, I will never ever get complacent. But there is a balance.
Does that leave you with a feeling of ever feeling like, I'm not good enough, it's not good enough, it's never enough?
All the time. And I think sometimes I know how to manage that and accept that may not be true, but there definitely lights a fire that is always there, always burning. Inside me, that is not like a fire. So yeah, there's definitely some positives to take from it, and you can use that as a source of energy, superpower, whatever. But it doesn't help it doesn't help you to relax on Saturday afternoon or on holiday, because that's always there.
So how do you manage it?
I don't. Do I manage it?
How would you want to manage it in your ideal world?
I think there's two things I do. So one is be super practical with it, and just to get into numbers and P&L and forecast and cash flows and how we're doing. Look at it and go, I'm going away for 2 weeks on holiday. If nothing happens when I'm not there, and we paint a worst case scenario of all these terrible things that happen, will the company still be alive when I get back? And always it's like, yeah, unless there is something cataclysmic that happens that we can't forecast for, or isn't one of my 3 or 4 crazy scenarios. So we just get really practical with it and write it down and go, okay, I'm actually allowed to take a little bit of a break. The other thing is just exhausting myself. And that could be going to the gym, running, swimming, so just doing something that saps a lot of my energy. And then I feel like I'm allowed to relax a little bit. So yeah, either go burn myself out physically, not burn myself out, probably an unhealthy phrase, but exhaust myself, use all my energy on that, and also just get really practical with the scenario. There may be times next week, next month, next year where that worst case scenario does play out because of bad decisions we've made, bad things have happened, whatever it is. But they're the only 2 ways I've got to manage it. But I also don't want to turn off that.
Look, sometimes we don't have all the answers and they're still unfolding and we still find them as time goes on, and that's okay. That's okay. You do now have a much better understanding of yourself. Thinking about this younger you, what would you say to them now? If you could chat to your younger self, what would you say to him?
You don't know what you're capable of. There's a phrase I've heard recently, and again, I think Chris Williamson said it. Like, you've already hit goals that you thought would make you happy. And I think that's a big one, because you're younger and you're going through this great childhood that gets turbulent, and there's some challenges financially and all that sort of stuff. And you decide, when I get to this point, I get to buy this thing, or I'll get to do this, and then I'll feel good. None of that stuff makes me anyway, feel anything. Like, I generally couldn't give a shit. So all that stuff is kind of nonsense and doesn't mean anything. But yeah, I think things, for the most part, if you keep showing up, you work hard, you're honest, you have some integrity, you just an overall good person, like, good stuff happens to you. Not every day, not every week, but it will happen. Just keep going. And it's supposed to be tough, but it should also be fun.
There's a saying that I love. It's a Sanskrit saying. Everyone else is just a reflection of you. And I know you feel very strongly that your perspectives, your experiences, what's worked for you and what hasn't, will not work for a lot of other people because everyone's different. If everyone else is just a reflection of you, then the things about other people that are different to us, that annoy us, that we like, all of those things exist within us to some extent.
Yeah.
And what that tells me is that regardless of how different we are, we're all far more similar than we are different. And therefore, there are things that we can learn from absolutely anyone, regardless if they have different ambitions, different temperament, different desires, different goals in life. And so if we can learn some fundamental truths from absolutely anyone, what are the fundamental truths that you feel like you've learned that absolutely anyone can learn from?
Just work really hard and don't stop, and expect nothing back.
It can be tough to expect nothing back though, right? Because we need to expect something back at some point. I have to pay my bills, blah, blah, blah. So how do you manage those expectations?
Okay, expect nothing back in the short to medium term, or what people are dreaming about, what they're fantasizing about.
Okay. So curbing intellectual desires or emotional desires. Curbing desires for specific results.
Yeah.
Okay.
My only secret or superpower is being able to work for extended periods of time at real intensity and enjoy it. Like, I love working. Like, for the most part, yes, there are days where things are harder than they usually are or whatever it is, but for the most part, I love working. And I love trying to make things happen and creating stuff out of nothing and going, we're in this market and we have no customers and all of a sudden we have revenue in this market. It's like we created that. But it comes at the sacrifice of time and of a work rate that I generally think most people, I'm not saying they don't have, I think they do have it, but they fall short and they stop just before, or they stop way too early. Just work really hard. Be a good person. Don't be a dick. And just show up every single day. Now, there's also a point where you need to reflect on what you are doing. And my brain is super simple. So if you're looking at kind of like inputs and outputs, what are you doing? Like someone comes and says, I'm working 80 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've done that for a year. And I've got no customers, no clients, no revenue, no product, whatever it is. Okay. On that basis, maybe you're doing the wrong things. Mm-hmm. So I think it does take to look back daily, weekly, monthly. There's a nice cadence for me. It's not like an hour reflection session. Give me like 3, 5 minutes, 10 minutes on the train, on the car on the way home, just thinking about what you've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and analyzing where are you spending your time, where are you spending your energy, and how do you distill that into what's working, what isn't. And if it's working, do more, and if it's not working, do less. But also do that to a point where you can't do anymore. I think right now, with how connected people are, certainly on a kind of global stage, how much people are working, how hard they're working. If you want to do something and achieve something by working 9 to 5, 5 days a week and with great balance, I genuinely do not think that is a possibility. If someone can do that, they are, comparing to myself, they're probably way more intelligent than me, which is a lot of people. They have better skills than me, which again is a lot of people. They have access to better technology, all of these things. Like if you can do that in a 8-hour workday with a 1-hour lunch break, great, good for you. I don't think I have that in my locker. Maybe at some point I'll figure it out, but for the time being, it's just effort, energy, brute force.
There's a lot of online discourse about this right now because often people hear this kind of thing and they feel like it's prescriptive as opposed to descriptive, right? This is descriptive about you and what works for you. The Hormozis are like this. They get a lot of shit for, we work so hard, we don't really want kids, we just want to work, and we love it, so it's okay. And if you also want level success, that's what you have to do. And a lot of people feel like that's prescriptive. They go, but I do want kids and I don't want to work that much. And so it becomes controversial. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's any way or any perspective in which what you just said is controversial?
Probably.
How so?
I accept that the way my brain works is not normal, but
there is no normal.
Is not for everyone. I think everyone has their own choice and own free will to live their life how they wish. I'm just saying that works for me. Will that be the case forever? Maybe not. Things in my life will change, and who knows what that will look like and where we end up living and what home and family life looks like. But for the time being, this is a superpower and an advantage that I have and will continue to double down on that. I see and read and hear and discuss the kind of work-life balance and disconnecting from this, that, and the other. I want to do that. Like if I wanted to do that, I could quite happily turn up at work at 9, leave at 5. Things would be fine. The company would still run. I'd still have a pretty good income and all these sorts of things, and that would be fine. But that doesn't appeal to me. So I think it's one of the earlier questions is like going back to like quitting drinking or making this change in your life. Like understand what is it that you really want to do. So if I really wanted to get home to watch Coronation Street at 6 p.m. and that was like my one true passion, and eating food on the sofa and falling asleep watching junk on Netflix 5 days a week, if that was what I really wanted to do, I could do that. I could engineer my life to do that. But that doesn't get me excited. I get no energy from that. It doesn't get my juices flowing. So that's just not me. But for other people, that is exactly what they want to do, and they're going to be insanely happy doing that. And that if that is the case, then they should do that.
I do sometimes think about if people bother setting themselves those goals at all or not. Sometimes even really ambitious people actually haven't set an end goal. They're making money to make money. And you get some people who haven't set any goal, regardless of if it's a good or healthy goal or not, and they're not motivated, or they have no reason to be disciplined to, whether it's motivation or discipline or both. And then there isn't consistent enough input, so you don't get consistent output. We hear a lot of these stories. I was listening to one just the other day from Lewis Howes, another really big podcaster. And he was describing a time where he was younger. He started being successful in his, early business career, was living in the most expensive apartment building in LA. And he goes home one day and the whole building shut down. He asks the concierge, like, what happened? I think he makes a joke about it. It's like, did someone jump off the building? Ha ha. And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. This building has multimillionaires mostly living in it. And this person who jumped was worth $500 million. What happened? And so you go, okay, sometimes achieving the goals is clearly not enough. And then this makes me ask the question, what goals are we setting and why? Some people don't set goals. Some people set the wrong goals. Some people are living in scarcity, and that scarcity is enough to make them work hard. They lights that fire under their ass, so they're always going. But then they go, but why have I been doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I think about the goals people set, and if on average, or even if the majority of the time, they're good enough, and what makes a good enough goal. You're really ambitious, but what exactly are those goals, and how did you set them? Why did you set them? How do you think about the goals that you set?
Come back to that in a second. One of the questions earlier about how do you have fun in that, like with that kind of discipline, rigor, routine, work rate, effort, energy I put into what I do, I am having fun like 99% of the time.
Okay.
So just want to share that on that point. I went for the start of this year, and for the first time in a long time, set a bunch of goals in different aspects of my life. Whether that's financial, whether that's business, whether that's fitness, whether that's personal life. That's the first time I've actually had that rigor or like process to look at what am I trying to do and how, because I also don't think over an extended period of time it's a zero-sum game. So everything in there had to be counteracted with something else. So there's the work and financial stuff and growth, and then the health and fitness, and the underlying and the most important thing is my home life and or wife Claire and dog Simba. And one of the things is we agreed to like cook dinner together a minimum of twice a month, which may sound trivial, but with lots of travel. But that's like a switch off, disconnect, music on in the kitchen, and just cook something together. Like so trivial. Some people do that 7 nights a week, and if they do, that's great. We don't. So not all of the goals have to be big goals. I think it comes down to, now it's all well and good writing down these big goals, and this year I want to get to like 10 million revenue or 50 million, or we want to double headcount, or whatever kind of trivial business metric you want to use to drive that goal. That's great, but then how do you do it? Like if you want to double headcount and you're not setting aside 1 day a week, 2 days a week to focus on working with recruiting partners or your internal talent team or interviewing or reviewing CVs or resumes, whatever it is. So you say you want to double headcount, but your calendar and your diary isn't showing that's a possibility, then it's just made up.
You set a goal that's meaningful to you based on the parameters of your life, and then you have to reverse engineer, well, what does meaningful mean, right? Is meaningful engineering time with the person that I love, because that is the person that's most important to me right now, and here's what life looks like that makes it challenging, but like, guess what? It's my fucking life, so I can do something about that.
Yeah.
And we do the best we can, right? The best you can do is to do the best you can. Sometimes it reflects that some people's best is just kind of shit. we're all doing our best, but sometimes our best isn't very good. And the question is, okay, well, what is my best? What is my best to me? Is my best to other people something that matters? So you doing your best matters because you employ over a dozen other people who do rely to some extent on your thing. So you ask yourself, okay, am I doing good enough? So sometimes you're in the office late, and some people are like, well, this, that, the other. Like but you'd be like, well, yeah, but this is helping us go further and helping me achieve my goals, which I'm loving, but also that helps you because I employ you. And so sometimes you have to make those sacrifices, but you actually ask yourself the question, what is the meaningful goal to me? And I think that is what matters. A lot of us, we get to that monetary level, right? We're worth someone's worth $500 million, and they go, why am I here? What am I doing? I feel really lonely. I feel like everyone wants something from me. This is too much. And there's no one to help you see that light at the end of the tunnel or move through that. And you might not be worth $500 million, but you have the person who will help you move through that. You have people around you who can help. You've got community. You've got your ways of, and those are the goals you've actively set. Some of them are maybe more unconscious goals. You do lots of exercise. Was the goal to go, I'm going to do exactly this much, at least this many times a week? Maybe it wasn't. And you fill your time with some of it. But that's also okay because you know what you want. And many of us don't.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what you want and then how you actually feel are two ways I look at things. Regardless of what happens business-wise or some like physical fitness things I want to do over the next 12 to 24 months. I also know that I'm not saying like this minute, whether I'm quite happy right now, like for the most part, the last few months or 6 months, I've never been happier. So anything else is really just a bonus. I'm also aware, like, I can't just sit at home and just be happy all the time. Like I need to have something to do and something to focus my energy on. But in terms of how I feel about myself and my life, I'm insanely happy. So everything else is really just a bonus. So when it means taking that call at a weird time of night or taking that flight over a weekend and, all these things, they don't feel as bad because I'm generally really happy with myself and my life. So everything is just a bonus. Whereas before it was chasing stuff to try and feel happy. I feel content and feel good enough, all that stuff. I feel all those things now. So anything else is we're above the baseline of what I need to feel good. So when people say, your work habits and work rate and lack of balance, all these things is really unhealthy, I'm like, that's fine. That may be true. But for me right now, it feels really healthy because everything else feels like it's in check. So I'm able to do that.
Well, actually, it would be unhealthy to them. Most of us live our lives through the paradigm of ourselves. We really struggle with what empathy actually is, just physically putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So if I was doing what you would do, I would be unhealthy. Therefore, you're unhealthy. That doesn't actually mean you are.
Yeah, and I think empathy is definitely something that has been lost or people don't really understand. I think there's different things you can take from other people, but trying to replicate or emulate what other people do or what you see them say on the internet and all those things, you just do what you want to do, like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you are more than 50% of the way there.
Yeah, love it. Ivor, I've got a closing question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. The show is called Lost in Searching. And so we're all a little bit lost sometimes in life. We're all searching for some answer of some kind, sometimes more so than other times in our lives. The question is, what is the biggest question in your life that you are still searching for the answer to?
Whoa. Okay. What is the biggest question in my life that I'm still searching for the answer for? Some of the early conversation about going back to like stopping drinking, and like for me, alcohol wasn't a problem. It was a solution to an underlying problem that I had about how I felt about myself and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I feel I've answered this question many times in paid for therapy. I think the big question, well, there's a couple of things. So one is, why didn't that happen to me earlier? So why didn't I have this kind of like stark realization, low moment, people call it rock bottom moment. I had it just over 3 years ago. Why didn't I have that like 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Like, who knows what life could look like? So that's sometimes a bit of a frustration, and I can have a bit of resentment towards that. But then I have to remind myself, if that had been the case, would I be where I am now? Like, the dots just wouldn't join in the same way. So again, it was something I just had to happen, and the price had to be paid. I think the other thing is, you mentioned earlier, like, how do you know you're doing the right thing, and second guessing yourself. I wouldn't say it happens often. I don't know, once every few weeks or month or so. Like, is this the right thing to do? Am I on the right path? So understanding what the right path was. So I look once every 6 months into the future, just to kind of have a look ahead and go, I'm on the right path. And that's the thing, just it's the trust in yourself. I'm not sure if that's a good answer to a question or to the question, but there would be the two that I would give.
Those are really important questions. Anything that we are currently searching for the answer to is something that we need to be asking ourselves, maybe sometimes asking to other people, because the world's usually helping us answer the question in some way, shape, or form. And it sounds like you have ideas or pointers towards the answer or answers. And that's really important.
I guess the one thing to add on that is, there's definitely some things, this is not my style at all. I'm going to sound really big-headed at. There's some things I am pretty good at and getting better at. I think understanding where my real gaps and weaknesses are, so searching for where those big gaps are and where would be the best use of my time to spend on improving, basically, would be another add to that. But in terms of the bigger, more cerebral question, I don't know, like, for the first time ever, like, I feel like I'm not really lost in searching for anything. Whereas so 3 years ago, I would have been 31. So for the first, maybe my entire working life, from 21 to 31, I probably spent 10 years like trying to find something, trying to feel something, trying to feel good enough, trying to make enough money to be like, oh, now this feels good. And you realize it doesn't, none of it makes you feel good at all. So for the first 10 years, I was like absolutely on that path to like searching for something to hit a milestone and go, oh, I can relax now. Now it feels fine. For the last 3 years is a polar opposite in terms of how I am now to how I was for the first 10 years, if that makes sense.
It's a subjective feeling, right? So you feel that way, and people have to kind of trust you feel that way. And I think that's what makes it inspiring. People need to go, what would better feel like for me in my life? Oh shit, okay.
I think it's when things for me are in like some sort of unison. They don't have to be equal parts, but they have to be semi-balanced, in the sense of I'm getting enough time with family and loved ones. I'm getting enough physical exercise. I'm making the progress I want in my company. I'm doing all these things. They don't have to be 100% all out, but where just stuff feels balanced for that moment in time. There are periods where like everything gets turned off and it's like 100% like home life. Holidays, Christmas, birthdays, those sorts of things. There's the dials kind of move up and down at different moments in time, and just trying to figure out what works for you, and accepting that. But yeah, for the what does it feel like? It just, I don't know, feels like things. It feels like how things should feel, and a lack of. That's a big question. How should it feel? I think partly comfortable, partly uncomfortable in a sense that when I feel pretty content and this, that, and the other, I'm also able to deal with huge amounts of discomfort elsewhere because of how I feel in myself, if that makes sense.
Ivor, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being so giving with your time to the community. You're a big, I say a big part of this community. You're in lots of parts of, London's community. You're very giving and very open, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you for answering stuff so honestly and not being afraid to be a little controversial too. I love it. So appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, look at you making it to the end of the episode. Welcome. There's a lot more for you to do. If you're still here, there's a full playlist on YouTube down below. There's a recommended video probably somewhere around the screen or down below, and so much more. Give us a follow, help share if you're here. Hey, maybe you enjoyed it. And look, this show only grows with your help. So again, I know you're probably bored of hearing it, but it would mean the world to me if you help us out and paid it forward and shared it around. And hey, you never know how this will help someone else. So thank you so much for being here, for being a part of it. Lots of love, and here is to your success. See you soon.